Welcome to LC Screen Talk. My name is Larry, and this is my review of Blinded by the Light. In honor of the theme and spirit of this film, I brought along Ms. Chaka Khan with me for this review into the screening because she is a singer that has really inspired and impacted me, obviously through her voice. For me, she is the ultimate voice in my life, but she actually has helped create a family connection and has really been a staple, honestly, ever since I was growing up all the way through now. Such an icon, a legend, the biggest of the iconic legendary singers who has had an impact in my own personal life. So, just a quick story here, and that'll segue us into Blinded by the Light, a film about a young Pakistani teenager living in England who is turned on to the music of Bruce Springsteen. And as he delves into these lyrics and lets the music impact him as a person, he finds himself at odds with his Pakistani upbringing and his desire to be a writer and live by the words and the music of Springsteen. I need to say, I'm not the biggest Springsteen fan. I don't dislike his music, certainly. I can definitely recognize the great songwriting talent he possesses. But much like my shirt may indicate, when it comes to the oldies, when it comes to the classics, when it comes to the legends who really built the foundation of music, for me, it's always been about R&B and soul and funk and jazz. Those are my arenas. Those are where I have been rooted into music. Where so many of my friends have been much more in the vein of classic rock, I've caught on to those things and I certainly know of them. I know of these legendary bands. I appreciate their music, but soul and funk and R&B is really where my expertise and my history lies. So Springsteen was never a staple for me growing up, honestly. I was worried, honestly, going into this film. There was a ton of hype coming out of Sundance, and then I saw the trailer and it looked perfectly cute. It looked perfectly serviceable. But let's just be real. Feel good, it's not usually my jam. That's not to say I dislike feel good films, but I seem to be less enthusiastic and enthralled with them as the rest of the world tends to be. Find out with my lack of enthusiasm generally when it comes to Bruce Springsteen and his music, and the whole feel good nature of it all, I was worried. But lo and behold, I ended up loving Blinded by the Light. So let's go ahead and talk about the positives first. Well, I have to say, as feel good as this film is, it is deeper than I actually imagined it was going to get. What I loved is that the conflict really wasn't the conflict between son and his father and the cultural conflict of Bruce Springsteen versus Pakistani music and culture versus ambition. It really was an internal conflict of figuring out who you are and utilizing all of the tools here to get to that final destination of who you are and how you want to present yourself, how you want to live, and who you want to be. And I think that that journey was actually really, really impactful and something I think a lot of us actually can relate to. And I thought that was actually beautifully, beautifully explored throughout the film. And that's what really impacted me. That's where it really hit me, and I really enjoyed this film. The final third of this movie was my favorite portion of the movie. I thought it was just so good. It's directed by a woman of color, a Kenyan Asian woman. I believe it's pronounced Gurinder Chara, and this was a beautiful job directing from Gurinder. The scenes I really loved in the film were the scenes where the lyrics come up on the screen. Now, I know that can seem super art housey and maybe even a little bit on the nose or in your face or cheesy, but I thought it was just so well done that I loved it. And honestly, I really enjoyed all of the kind of fantastical elements within the film that that was just so beautifully handled. She had a clear voice, a beautiful story here to work with, which was a true story about an actual Pakistani Bruce Springsteen fan who became a journalist. And in saying that, we have a Middle East cast here given a beautiful light dealing with deeper issues that keeps the cultural aspects at the forefront and while telling the story of racism and prejudice and the hardships of being a Pakistani person, really, in most Western countries, even today. But that's not the forefront. It's this man's story and how culture impacts his personal life and his family. And that's just a part of it. And I thought that was also handled very, very well. The performances all were very solid, as you would hope, and the script is really well executed. You'll run through the gambit of all the emotions just as you would hope. And this honestly is like a feel-good movie executed to the top of its level. It's a really well-made film. Of course, if you like Springsteen, you're gonna love the soundtrack because it is all Springsteen. Plus, I loved what it has to say about the impact of music and how personal it is to us all. Really, it could be stretched out to art, and art can be life-changing, life-affirming, and it affects us all vastly differently. And I thought that was a key message to the film that was done perfectly. So what didn't work so well when it came to Blinded by the Light? Well, this is borderline a jukebox musical. At least for the first half of the film, it really feels like a jukebox musical. And once you get to the second half of the film, it's kind of revealed a little bit more why it is that, and it is a very distinct directorial choice to make the songs actually part of the script and actually be part of the story. But while I was watching them, they were very saccharine, and sometimes hurt my teeth just a bit with how sweet some of these moments were. And that second act in particular was real sweet. A little too much for my personal taste, where I was like, okay, we need to get to a point where we're not implementing these techniques so much. And I think part of that is our lead performance as well. Vivek Kalra gives a wonderful performance, and it really comes full circle. But for the first half of this film, he is just so kind of like happy-go-lucky all the time. They're just like, okay, his performance added on with this like super saccharine use of Bruce Springsteen songs and ideologies. It got a little bit much for me through that second act. But honestly, a lot of the problems I had with the film actually were resolved with the resolve of the story. That third act was so good at bringing a deeper level and more understanding to the first two acts that most of my problems really were solved. And by the end of it, most of them dissolved. As I said before, it was a really well-made film. So overall, I was pleasantly surprised with how much I ended up loving Blinded by the Light. You don't have to be a Springsteen fan to love the message and to love this film and have a beautiful time with it and let all of those emotions and the feels come rushing in. So honestly, I would give Blinded by the Light a full price ticket. I think you will really enjoy it if you just give it a chance. Plus, we are always hoping and yelling and screaming for more women of color to get a shot at directing. And here is a wonderfully directed film by a woman of color that is highly underrepresented, a cast of people that is highly underrepresented in roles like this. So here it is. Here's the film that we're always hoping to champion and hoping to support. So go support it. So that is my review of Blinded by the Light. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead, click like down below and subscribe to the channel so you are always up to date on my latest videos. Also, join in on the discussion. Are you excited to see Blinded by the Light? And what is your favorite film about a particular musical artist that's not a biopic about said artist? Let me know either in the comment section down below, or you can hit me up on Twitter. I love you all so much for your continued support. Mwah! Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!